I'd love to see you on camera, because this is a guy that when I went to an event, I think it was about 3 months ago now, and I remember people were saying to me, you need to connect with Alexis. You need to connect with Alexis. Like, he's amazing. He's great. And I was like, I'll see how good this guy is. People say all this stuff all the time. You've got to speak to these people. And I was speaking to someone. They said, oh, I'm doing an AI business accelerator event. And they were like, oh, you should watch Alexis. He's coming on next. So I see him walking up the corridor. And I go up to him and say, oh, it's Alexis. And he's like, yeah. He's like, nice to meet you. I said, I've been told that you're really good at what you do. And he's like, you've been speaking to my mum. And I was like, no, one of the guests told us. And I was like, well, I've got an opportunity that you might be excited to hear about. I'm running this summit, but before I do, I just want to see how good you really are. No pressure. This guy steps up on stage and he absolutely blows me away with just his knowledge, his understanding, and his ability to take things and make them sound really simple. He is just an absolute genius, very entertaining, brilliant presenter. Ladies and gentlemen, he is also an award-winning entrepreneur, and he's got two software businesses and a consulting practice. He's served over 600 organizations around the world, including brands such as Sony, 3M, Swarovski, Fitness First, and Pepsi. Alexis is passionate about helping business owners create the freedom to spend time on what matters most. He's also the founder of, I get this right, Emmanuel. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome him to the stage, Mr. Alexis Kingsbury. How you doing, Alexis?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, Jay. Thank you very much for having me. I forgot that that was the circumstances over which we spoke. That's a very me thing to do when confronted with praise, is immediately go for a joke.
Yeah, just deflect. Ah. I get it. How was your holiday?
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you. Really, really enjoyed it. Bit of golf, bit of time with family, and got out in the sun, which is why I've got a bit of a tan. I've had to try and play with I was playing with my video settings, sort out white balance, but I've realized it's just that I've got a tan. So there's not a lot I can do.
As long as it's not a t-shirt tan, we can't see that today being on the golf course.
That's right. It's very much a golfer's tan. Yeah.
I love it. So Alexis, you're here today to talk about how people can free up 15 plus hours per week and make AI your best junior employee. I'm gonna let you lead on this. If you want to jump right in, we can do that. Or if you'd like to, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be doing what you're doing.
Sure. Well, I'll happily do that, and I'll probably jump in quite quickly because I think, Jay, your introduction was excellent, and thank you for that, and thank you for having me on the summit. Like the other speakers that you've pulled together, and Jay yourself, like, is really high quality. I've managed to attend, despite being in Portugal, I've managed to attend some of the sessions, and there's just so much quality content and loads of ideas out there. And Jay, I think as you lined it up earlier, the risk is that it can be quite overwhelming. And that's something that I guess my whole career has been around, is how do you as a business focus on what matters most? How do you make sure that you work as efficiently as possible? How do you make sure that your business can run consistently well? And I'll talk about some of the ways in which I've done that over the years. But if I perhaps start off with a bit of a kind of reflection, perhaps based on what you were saying, Jay, around how we spend our time and how many days holiday we get and so on, because I think often it can be quite sort of intimidating, really, that some entrepreneurs just seem to have it all, like a thriving business, time to enjoy life and take lots of holiday, and can make a difference in the world. And yet so many others are overwhelmed. And indeed, most of those entrepreneurs had that period. And so it's hard sometimes to see what makes the difference. And I think that's a huge shame, because as entrepreneurs, we all have the power to make the world a better place. I think fundamentally as entrepreneurs that there's so many ways in which we can impact the world in a positive way. And for me, that's all about improving the lives of entrepreneurs, business leaders, and their employees by reducing stress and freeing up their time and ultimately being able to do what matters most. And I know that every single person attending here. And thank you so much for joining us and for turning your videos on and so on. That hugely helps me. I know that all of you have the potential to make the world a better place, each in your own way. And there really is so much potential. But the problem is that when I look back over my career as an entrepreneur, and I go back 7 years ago, I wasn't changing the world. It didn't matter that I had big dreams, I was stuck. And at that point, I had a few customers and I was doing some great things for them, but it was nowhere near the level of impact that I had dreamed of. And I knew I could do so much more, but I didn't have the space in my mind or in my calendar, which is why I love the session that Jay's just done to kind of explore where is your time being spent and what's the value of it. When I spoke to people, they told me that, I need to hand over some of my tasks to others in the same way that as Jay was showing us with the calculator, like that makes delegating and hiring and passing things to other people so obvious, and that it's something that you need to do. And that's something that I heard a lot, and they made it sound easy. And so I tried, honestly, repeatedly, I tried, but it never worked out, right? I was truly stuck, and not just for weeks or for months, but for years. Now, I'm not the kind of guy to give up easily. So it's like when my son, age 7 at the time, asked me to learn to skateboard with him, which, now I'm a geek. I love learning new things, but I also like not getting hurt. And being asked by my son to skateboard with him, I was like, well, the obvious answer is no. I'm a middle-aged man that needs my wrists for work purposes, because a lot of my work is on the computer. And so clearly it was a no. However, then my son gave me a look that he calls puppy eyes level 3000. So that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't able to say no. And instead, he got me on a skateboard. This one of my first attempts. Yeah, pretty painful. And in fact, I fell quite a few times, but I wouldn't give up. But there was one time when I fell quite hard and I was sat on a park bench nursing my injuries. And my son said to me, "Daddy, you just need to learn more." And it turned out he was absolutely right, because after watching some videos on YouTube, I stopped making silly mistakes. I stopped getting hurt when falling, and I stopped falling as often. And I've learned that great guidance, getting that input, gets great results. And in recent years, I've learned that this applies to both humans and AI. The quality of output is directly driven by the quality of the input. When we give guidance to employees and contractors, we call it onboarding or training and briefing and processes and checklists. With AI, we call it prompts and training data and objective scoring and feedback and all these sorts of things. But ultimately, it's the same thing. It's the guidance that you give. Even if the guidance is just, as Laura shared, you need wrist and elbow guards, which is great advice. And I do now have them. And particularly do it when we go to the skate park to try and learn tricks. So I know that great results come from getting great guidance. So when it came to delegating, I took a similar approach. I read all of the books and spoke to the smartest people that I knew. And over the following 3 years, I put it together and eventually I succeeded. And the result has been absolutely life-changing. I drop off my kids to school every morning, often doing so on my skateboard. I no longer work weekends. I can take 6-week-long holidays in the summer without getting disrupted by the business. And when I do work, I'm not spending my entire day juggling customers and supporting team members. I get to focus on making a bigger difference for more people. And that's what I want to help you with today. So I want to show you how you can give yourself the space by making onboarding and delegation easier, including delegating to AI, and do so more effectively. Because you've heard a lot of different ways through the course of the summit of how you can do it, but often it requires a bit more focus and clarity. So So that's what we're covering, and not just a little space. Like when we apply the lessons that I'm going to share today, the typical result that we see business leaders achieve is freeing up 15 hours per week or more. And in doing so, we help them to unlock growth and to deliver an incredible impact for their own customers so that they can help make the world a better place. Now, a really nice example of this was with Georgia Kirk. Georgia runs a business that helps experts to write and publish their books. And when I first met her, she'd had 2 years of strong growth in her business, but she was starting to hit bottlenecks. She was required at some point, as part of every sale, every project, every hire. And I suspect some of you can identify with this. So put a yes if that's something that you perhaps feel is that you're hitting those kind of bottlenecks. And Georgia was worried that delegating, bringing in a new team member to free up her time, would take her away from other priorities and slow the business down. Now, that's a real shame because Georgia makes a life-changing impact to her clients. But after implementing the approach that I'm going to share with you today, she saw immediate results. In fact, within the first week of her new team member starting, she saved 18 hours. And over the next 3 months, she went on to save 200 hours. That's 15 hours per week after hiring one team member. And she then continued to grow and began hiring other team members and so on. Now, unfortunately, Georgia then suffered a major loss. Her father suddenly passed away. Now, naturally, she wanted to spend time with her family. For her, for her mum, those are the moments in your life that making the time really matters. Now, there's never a good time to lose a loved one. But in Georgia's case, it was made worse by the fact that business was busy and that she had a new team member starting that week. But the good news is that her team were able to cope, and the new team member was able to onboard themselves, and Georgia's team were able to support him as he learned how to get things done right. And so Georgia was able to take as many weeks as she needed to grieve and to support her family. And once she returned to her business, it also unlocked her business growth, as she was no longer a bottleneck to sales and projects and hires and so on. So I think that's a great example of where I believe we delivered a life-changing impact for Georgia. We gave her freedom from her business just in time for when she needed it most. And as I said earlier, every one of you has the potential to make a life-changing impact on others. So I want you to take a moment to think about what's the life-changing impact that you deliver for others. And I'd love you to share some examples in the chat. So what's the impact that you have on other people? Ideally, it's in your business. It's the impact that you have when things go well for your clients. What impact do you have? But if you're in early stage and you haven't worked out your business yet and you're early, then talk about perhaps something that personally you feel like you add value to other people, something that perhaps is a core value for you. So just share in the chat.
We've got lots of one finger typers, or they're writing a lot. Come on, there's like 75 of you. Let's helping Alexis out here and engage. It's important. You get more from engaging. So the more you're engaging, the more you're going to get from this. Thank you.
Fantastic. So for Jay, it's providing people with confidence, money, and freedom. For Marnie, better productivity and time management by implementing business processes. Nice. So cool. You're gonna love this then, Marnie. Laura, for impact of having a specific plan for them to follow. Nice. For that, I'd love to then see, and so that based on having a specific plan, what do they then get from that? Teresa, help female entrepreneurs transform their lives and future of their businesses. Awesome. For that one, love to hear see some examples of what's the impact of that. For Lynn, it's empowering people. Keith, helping them be better leaders. For Andrew, reducing customer acquisition costs and digital behavioral targeting. Love how specific that is. Antigone K, people typically seek me out when they're going through a crisis of faith. We've got Dion teaching people how to heal their lives. Fantastic. Loads and loads of great examples of things that people are doing. Love it. Fantastic. So you've all demonstrated, and I love the fact that you're showing these things because I know that individually, and in fact, it happened at the event that Jay attended. I know that someone who shared an example of what impact they have led to them getting a customer in that room. I don't know whether you remember, Jay, but Vanessa stood up, shared that how she helps people with gut health by helping, making it easier to go on plant-based diets, and that resulted in a couple of people reaching out to her. So I hope a similar thing happens for you in the chat here. So do engage. So love those examples of the impact that you can have, and ultimately that's what's at stake, right? We're talking about life-changing impact that you can have on people, and I've seen how this impact ripples outwards and expands to people's families and friends and colleagues and clients and their families, friends, colleagues and clients. But to have an impact, you need space. In Georgia's case, she was held back by so much of the business being dependent on her. And this caused her stress, took up her time and held back her growth. So really, we have to be clear about what's holding you back from making a bigger impact. And I love Jay's calculator, because essentially he's talking about what are the activities that you're doing that are not driving the business revenue, that aren't driving your ability to have a greater impact on more people, and instead are more sort of costs of incidental of how you do business. So have a think about and share in the chat, what are the sorts of things, what comes to mind when you think about what's holding you back right now from making a greater impact? Maybe it's that you're struggling with time. You just feel like if you just have more time, more to be able to get out there, that you could do it. Or maybe it's that you feel like that you're not clear enough on your target audience, like, or maybe you just feel a bit spread thin. Like, what is it that right now is holding you back from making a greater impact? Maybe it's stress. Maybe you just feel like overwhelmed and you can't see the route through. Maybe it's mistakes. Maybe you're finding that you're growing, but actually there are drop balls all over the place. And as a result, you're not able to quite get clients the results that you'd like to. Cool. So we've got some suggestions. Fantastic. So Kay Newman said time and energy. Dr. Helene says not enough time. We've got Frost Ice says freedom and society. Jean says don't like marketing. Too much life, not being able to duplicate me, too much AI training, being a solopreneur, no help. Fantastic. Excellent. So you've all got some great examples of things that are currently holding you back from making a bigger impact. And ultimately, what I've found is that you need that space, right? You need that room as a business leader to be able to step back and work out, okay, what's the right way through, and then dedicate and allocate resource to that route so that you can get the outcome that you want. And so when we talk about how do you create that space, how do you create that freedom of your time and so on, what's the answer? And in theory, we already know the answer, because the best-selling books tell us that we need to document and delegate. We need to document our processes, hand them over to VAs, contractors, employees. That frees up our time, that reduces stress, it unlocks our growth. And books like E-Myth, etc., make it really compelling and clear that, yeah, if you're a baking business, for example, you can't spend all of your time baking bread, the business won't grow. You're going to need to get someone in place of that, and that frees you up the time and so on. Now, I love these books, and they have transformed my life in ways that you can't even imagine, right? And when I meet some of the authors, which I've had the great fortune to do, it is like meeting Beyonce for geeks like me. And I sort of fall to bits and disgrace myself. But so I do mean it when I say that these books are great. But there is, someone wants to take a quick screenshot. I'm sure we'll share like, let me go here. There you go. Take a quick screenshot of some of these books. These are awesome books. I highly recommend them, right? Take a little screenshot. There you are, Frost Dice. Cool. So those books are great, but there is a problem, which is that most business owners have tried to document and delegate, but it becomes a mess. The team don't consistently follow the processes or keep them up to date. And that's exactly where I was in 2017, by the way. I'd started off capturing processes and a variety of tools, but found they were slow to create and edit while keeping them looking simple. People weren't able to find the most up-to-date guidance. People would find them hard to follow and would like make mistakes or skip steps. And no one ever made like improvements and continuously improved processes because we'd save them as PDFs to kind of stop them becoming messy. And so it was really, really painful. And delegating, getting team members up to speed wasn't quick or easy. And I couldn't take a holiday with my wife without it being disrupted. And over time, everything would go out of date. And so my enthusiasm for documenting and delegating practically died. I just felt stuck. I mean, the life-changing impact I was making at that point was nearly causing my wife to divorce me, frankly. But I suspect that I'm not on my own in this. Right. Type in the chat if you've had an experience, and just say yes if you relate to this experience where you tried to document and delegate and found these sorts of issues, where you've tried to free up your time, you've tried to make the business less dependent on you, or even just hire a VA or hand things over and found that it's not work, right? So don't worry if you're saying yes, like that's where we all started. And I'm going to save you an absolute world of pain when it comes to either hiring your first people, or even if you've got team members at the moment, I'm going to show you how to make this way, way easier and faster and efficient and get you massive return on investment on this. And Laura says, or even finding the time to find the time, right? It's such a common thing that I hear from my clients is that they're too busy to become less busy. And it doesn't work that way. But the good news is the approach that I'm going to show you, you don't need to suddenly carve out 2-3 days. I mean, the fact that you're able to carve out small amounts of time to come to events like this is brilliant. That is exactly what you should be doing as a business leader. You need to be expanding your thinking. But I think a lot of people assume that sorting this stuff out is a big project that takes months or at least days or weeks, and it doesn't. It takes an hour here, like call it 90 minutes a week, is a huge, will take you hugely forward. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do. But the painful thing is that I've seen this across so many business owners and leaders, like friends and family as well, where they're working all hours to build their businesses and their relationships suffer, and they are making sacrifices that they didn't think they'd be making at the beginning, and yet they're earning less than they would in a 9-to-5 job. And that's not okay with me. I believe that business leaders should have freedom and enjoyment now rather than wait for some imaginary day in the future. So why does document and delegate fail? Well, to illustrate this, let's imagine I'm trying to get my kids, age 7 and 9, to help me more around the house. So I call a family meeting on a Saturday morning and I explain my grand plan. We're going to work together to document how to do every job, and then we'll be able to share the workload. Now, those of you who are parents, and if you're a parent, write parent in the chat so that I know. You will know that already my plan has got off to a poor start, right? If I'm planning on calling a Saturday meeting with my kids to do this. Yeah, there's quite a few of the parents do. You get this, right? But that's what we're going to do. Now, my daughter actually does a great job of creating a video of her filling the washing machine. And she did a good job, but filled it with red and white clothes. So we're going to need to re-record the whole thing. And she does not want to do that right now. So it never gets done. Now, my son takes some photos of how to set the table, which is great, but it's something that everyone already knows how to do. So we don't even bother downloading the photos off the phone. Now, my wife says she already knows how to do everything the best way, so doesn't think it's worth writing it down. She can just tell everyone what to do. Now, after more than 10 years of marriage, I know that she is 100% correct always. So I'm not going to disagree with that. But it means that no one writes down, for example, how to pack the school bags and get uniform ready each week, because it takes ages and it's complex. And so after spending all weekend on this, Monday arrives and we've made no progress. And I just decided, I'm never going to document and delegate again. Instead, I will just finish that sentence for me. I will just do it all myself. Yeah, Laura got it. Well done. Yes, very happily married, Laura. Once I sorted out the early days of me working all hours, yes. But it's do it all myself, right? We decided that we'll just do it all myself. And why? Why did this fail? Well, there's lots of reasons why this failed, but the main one is perhaps that we didn't focus enough, right? We didn't focus enough. If we just focused on one task, such as packing school bags on a Sunday for the week ahead, it would have been possible to get it handed over in under an hour. Now, here's the good news. That's what I actually did. Told you I was a geek. The kids have a checklist each that they use each Sunday to get their bags ready. And they really enjoy doing it. But if I move my face up the way, there you go. You can see that they've got their little checklist that they follow. And when you, we've done this using Air Manual. And so when they tick it off, it does like confetti when it comes down. And I've got a little video. I think hopefully I can show you this. This is Sasha. Let me see if I can do this. It's a video of Sasha celebrating after she did it, which gave an impromptu success dance. So, you know, when you get this right, even though I'm a geek, even though having a Saturday morning is a terrible idea, we did get to a point where they could actually do it. And so that's the process that I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you an end-to-end approach that makes success much more likely and helps you free up 15 hours per week. And so I think it's worth you writing down these steps, and I'm going to share it in a 4-step process. So the first is to focus. Find your biggest problem, which you can simply get to by asking yourself, what's holding me back from moving towards my goals right now? Just like we did earlier in this session, what's holding you back from having a greater impact? And sometimes you need to dig deeper. You need to think, oh, but why? You know, what's the real thing behind that? What's the real thing behind that? Where am I spending the time? Or using Jay's awesome calculator, if you actually spend the time and put in real numbers against those activities, you'll identify where you're spending the time and what's holding you back, right? It's really, really powerful exercise. I love that Jay shared that with you because that's gold. But doing that and getting that focus is absolutely critical because it avoids you trying to document for the sake of it, like the photos that Ethan took of how to set the table. And instead, you solve real problems so that you can make an impact as early as possible. Once you've focused on solving a real business problem, you look at the business tasks that relate to it. You outline them, you list them out. And this makes it easy to see the big picture, where to start, and it gives you the roadmap for what to document and delegate. Then we can prioritize each one to document and test first with the aim of getting value as quickly as possible. So this avoids you spending days or weeks documenting, yet failing to get the return on investment at that time. And this also helps you make sure that the document is easy to follow and avoids mistakes because you're testing it. You're not just documenting all your business so that one day you can hand it over. You document. So you prioritize something, you document it, you test it, you get it handed over, and then you repeat that loop. Cool. Finally, you then make management of it easy so that the guidance is used, maintained, and continuously improved. Now you can use a simple dashboard, and a weekly 5-minute review is sufficient to get on top of all of your guidance. And even better, you can empower your team to do the managing. This avoids you getting sucked into micromanagement, whilst making sure that people actually follow and update their documentation as they go along. So that's the 4 stages. And I'm going to kind of give you an example of how this works in practice. And then we're going to dive into where AI fits into this, because I gave the hint of it earlier on. So I'll be interested. In fact, you post in the chat if you worked out where AI fits into this exercise and where you see it's used. But I want to start by giving you a little example to really bring it to life, because I think people struggle with okay, but what does this actually look like? How can I really spend a small amount of time, like under 3 hours, and get this and start freeing up 15 hours a week? And I'm going to show you how I did this live in the call using Air Manual. Of course, full disclosure, it's one of my software businesses. It's an online platform for documenting processes and onboarding as interactive checklists. And we created it because other tools just created too much friction to make documenting, delegating, and scaling easy. So that's what we created. So the first thing that we did with Paul is, so for context, he was working 60-hour weeks, 70-hour weeks. and felt completely unable to work on the business, right? And couldn't see where to even begin to free up his time. A little bit like it was suggested in the chat earlier, like can't even free up the time to free up the time. And so we said, well, where are you currently spending your time? And so we listed out a few activities and or outlined them. We picked one, which was sending quotes to customers, that was taking 3 hours per day. That's 15 hours per week. So we set that as the priority to document and test, stage 3, right? And he said he knew it needed handing over, but he thought it'd probably take 8 hours just to document it. So he hadn't got around to it. So I said, well, we've got 45 minutes left on this call. Let's see what we can do. So that was the priority. So we began to document. We summarized the process and context to make it clear when it should be used and what matters most. We then added in high-level steps to make it easy to follow. We added in explanations and screenshots to explain the tricky bits and the logic, and warnings to prevent common or high-impact mistakes. All of this took less than 30 minutes, by the way. And on a follow-up call with his team, we handed over to the account managers who could then use the checklist. And they found it easy to follow the steps, capture data to refer to later, and they could pick up where they left off or see any missteps. Immediately, that business owner was saving 15 hours per week. That's 780 hours per year after handing over one process. Also, customers now get quotes from their account managers in under an hour rather than 2 to 3 days. Imagine the impact on your conversion rate. If you're a printing business and you get asked for a quote and your competitor takes an hour to respond to the customer and you take 2 to 3 days, are you getting the business? No. So a few hours invested saved him 15 hours per week, plus massively improved his conversion rate. And we then set up the management and continuous improvement, which is stage 4, so that over the next 9 months, he completely removed himself from the day-to-day in the business. He removed himself as a bottleneck to growth. So for those of you that perhaps already have team members, VAs, contractors, employees, do you see how the approach that I've shared is a game changer for making it easy to hand over multiple tasks to free up your time and unlock your growth? Do you see how that completely changes from spending days like slowly coaching or using shadowing or whatever, and how you can get tasks like the ones that Jay was listing in the calculator, how you can get those documented, handed over, and do that not as a big project, but do them individually over time and free up your time? Do you see the impact of that? Give me a big yes in the chat. Cool. And looking back at the notes, I can last do that. Cool. Nice to got thoughts on that.
Yes, looks like
fantastic. Getting lots of yeses. Marvelous. Love it. Now, for those of you that are interested in looking at Air Manual or want to learn more about those 4 stages, exactly how to do them, what they look like, and some best practice and so on, we've got a free guide that's got videos and step-by-step guidance and all that kind of stuff so that you can do it. You can use the QR code, or you can type in that link to get that free guide, to get that now. And maybe someone can type it in the chat for me as well, because I'm going to move
Rebecca will put it in.
Marvelous, thank you. So it's airmanual.link/discover where you'll find that guide. But for some of you might be thinking, well, but I'm not ready to hire, or I can't afford to hire, or whatever it is. And of course, that's where, firstly, we'd argue you're wrong, because as Jay highlighted with the calculator, you can't afford not to hire, like you can't afford not to grow. And that doesn't mean that you need to hire 100 people immediately today, but it does mean that you should be looking at where you're spending your time and where you can be freeing it up by delegating, so that you can achieve more, that you can have a greater impact, and that you can reduce the time that you're spending on low value activities. But what if I could give you a junior employee that will work for less than £1,000 a year, and you don't need to buy them a desk or worry about them getting sick or going on parental leave, or even need to ask them questions about how their families are, because this employee is AI. Now, I often say that AI can be your best junior employee, because they can help you use the time that you save better, and they can bring your ability to hire humans much closer. They can support you with tasks. we're a long way off getting to the point where AI is going to be acting as the senior employees. Even the smartest AI researchers, not even due to AI limitations, but due to risk, frankly, suggest that there needs to be human in those AI loops, right? You don't want adverts and content going out there based only on the AI algorithms, because the risk is so high that it ends up being misaligned with what your real objectives are. So you need humans somewhere in your process, but you also want AI in your processes to make them more efficient and to help you leverage those people better. Now, of course, everyone's heard of OpenAI and ChatGPT, and everyone's been talking about that. And I'm not going to give you a basics primer on AI. I'm sure by being here, you've covered lots of that in other sessions and seen lots of great examples of how AI is used. If not, if you want to see more, I have got a podcast, De-Stress Your Business, where some of the episodes, or a lot of the episodes, I've talked about AI and in a very pragmatic way about how you can apply it in your business and the risks and so on. And there's loads of other great content as well that I'm sure you'll find relevant. But right now, I want to give you some real life examples of how you can embed AI into your business. So what I want to start with is perhaps an example from ChatGPT. So firstly, I want to gauge, like,
just do a time check. Yeah, Alexis, we've probably got about 6 or 7 minutes. So
cool.
I don't know.
Cool. And is that including or excluding Q&A?
That's including.
Cool. Oh, there's so much I could show. In which case, yeah, I'll show the examples quickly show the examples that I wanted to use, and then we'll dive into some questions. But in the examples of ChatGPT, like if you haven't played with it, and certainly you need to have a play with ChatGPT 4. Like, I've shown people how you can quickly create a entire children's book in a few minutes and get that all created and so on. I've seen examples of where friends of mine have built their businesses and used tools like Midjourney to create images that they can use in their games. And, in this example, in a game that normally would have spent, days to create, or lots and lots of money spent on junior artists and graphics designers. I've used tools like Descript for repurposing podcast episodes. And you can even, if you haven't seen Descript before, one of its tools is which is called Overdub, allows you to record up to an hour of you speaking, and then it means that you can then recreate your voice. So, for example, this sentence was never set out with real life. Has created the voice using its AI feature. Yeah, I don't know whether it comes with the audio on Zoom came through on that, but the amazing thing,
it does a little bit. It's not brilliant.
Cool, yeah, it's probably a bit quiet.
Just to let people know, if they're interested, I did a training in the AI Business Accelerator Summit Facebook group with Descript. So if you want to learn about it, there's a training in there.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's one of the great things of a summit like this is you've got so many different tools being demonstrated, and there's loads of tools out there that are embedding it. But the key message I want to land for you is that from this, you've got hopefully tons of ideas, loads of tools that you could use in your business. But just because there are a million things that you could do, that doesn't mean you should. You need to focus. Your biggest problem is not how to use AI. And so the key is to getting immediate value from AI is to use it to focus on the biggest problems that you're facing today. And to do that, I recommend using the same 4-stage approach that we used earlier. And particularly when it relates to prioritize, document, and test, is using that as the opportunity to say, okay, we've documented a process. So for example, we worked with a podcaster to document her process for publishing a podcast episode, but there was one particular step that was like editing the episode that was taking her ages. We showed her a quick Google, come up with Descript, include some steps on how to fix it, and suddenly she was able to reduce the cost of outsourcing editing the podcast by 20x. So rather than it costing her £2,000 per episode to have it edited, it would cost £100 instead, as a result of creating the process and then working out which steps could be done by AI. And that is the key, right? That is how you can really leverage AI, is to work out in your business the things that work, whether it's, those things on the right-hand side of Jay's calculator. How do you make sure that those things are done effectively and as efficiently as possible, that they're embedded in your processes, that they're done consistently, and that you and your teams are leveraging AI to make that efficient and cost effective? And we've got a guide, a business leader's guide, that covers a lot of this in a lot more detail, including we've got a step-by-step checklist that you can go through to help you actually identify how you're going to prioritize using AI in your business and where the biggest risks and opportunities are for you. But what's most important to me is that you've got that clarity now, that you feel like you can free up that time, and so that you can unlock growth and make AI your best employee. But remember, it's not just about getting more done. It's about being able to choose how you spend your time, on the relationships that matter to you, on the activities that unlock your growth, on the impact that you can have in the world. Thank you very much.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexis Kingsbury, did we enjoy that? Just put a yes in the chat for me if you really enjoyed that, just so we can see, Alexis can see your appreciation, because you can't see all your faces because you're still hiding off the camera. I'm not going to force you, so just put a yes in the chat if you enjoyed that. Now, I'm just curious, because me and Alexis are kind of talking at the minute about maybe doing a workshop, but I just want to survey you all and just see if this is something you might be interested in. Is anybody here, just put a 1 in the chat if you would be interested in working intimately with Alexis on the stuff that's going on in your business so that you can start to streamline this stuff. Who would be interested? So we'll look at, well, how is it you are thinking about things? How is it you're running your business? And then start to see how we can automate, how we can leverage AI to free up more of your time. Just put did I say a 1 or a
1?
Put a 3 in the chat. A 1 in the chat, a 1 in the chat.
1.
Okay, just put a 1 in the chat. So we're getting lots of 1s. Just let me know, because I won't put the workshop on if people are like, no, I'm not entirely bothered about that. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, I'll speak to Alexis, and if he's feeling generous and he wants to work with me, I don't know whether he wants to work with me.
No,
then
I'm up for it, Jay. I'm up for it.
I honestly think so. If you joined us late, we did a maximizing your time and earning potential calculator at the beginning of this. Rebecca will share a link and there'll be a training in the group. However, that combined with Alexis, you can see that the real challenge is focus. So if we can get you focusing on the things that matter in your business and free up that time using this kind of process that Alexis is talking about, using AI and some automation, we can save you a bunch of money and we can maximize your earning potential. So I will be in touch over the next week about that workshop if you are interested, for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, again, give him a big round of applause. Tell him what your biggest takeaway is in the chat. Alexis Kingsbury. There we go. I told you he was good.